for your reference, so you can use this information for your future references. Matt, I give you the floor. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. It's good to talk to all of you. My name is Matthew, or Matt. I'm going to talk a little bit more about myself in a little bit, but I'm an Education USA-Belarus intern. And I'm going to be talking to you about higher education, focusing specifically on graduate studies in the United States. This is going to be a more broad kind of general overview. So what I'm going to talk about today is my background, what is graduate studies, selecting programs, application documents. I'll talk a little bit about financial aid. I'm not going to go too in depth into that because I'm not an expert on that topic, but we'll also discuss financial aid and tips for entering graduate school. So my background. So I graduated from George Mason University in 2019 with a Bachelor's of Science in Biology. I live in Sterling, Virginia, which is about an hour away from Washington, D.C. by car. I am in graduate school. I am studying virtually. So I live at home while I'm studying. So I've studied both virtually and in person, as I'm sure many of you have done during the pandemic. And I'm studying energy policy and climate at Johns Hopkins University. And I will be graduating this year. So I'm looking forward to that. So we're going to talk first about what is graduate study. So many of you, as many of you know, there are many types of degrees that you can earn in the United States. These include the associate's degree, the bachelor's degree, the master's degree, and the doctoral degree, and usually that's a PhD, but there's other types of doctoral degrees. Today, we'll be focusing on the master's degree. So typically after completing a bachelor's degree at a college or university, one, if they choose to continue their schooling, would obtain a master's degree. It's a specialized training in a particular area of study, usually relevant to your field of interest. So a master's degree allows one to explore specific knowledge and training relevant to their life goals or career goals. So a graduate degree can open up opportunities for research in an academic setting. They can also put you on the path towards a PhD or doctoral degree, if that's your ultimate goal. And a master's degree is often needed for many types of advanced jobs as well. So types of graduate degrees. So master's degrees can be either academic or professional. There's many different types, like a master's of arts or science. There's many types of also professional degrees. So like the MBA, Masters of Business Administration, Masters of Education. There's so many different types of graduate degrees. So it's important when you're looking for a degree to narrow your focus down. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. So requirements vary for a master's program depending on the type of degree that you're looking for. Usually master's programs require 1 to 3 years of study. For my program, I entered in January of 2021, and I will graduate in December of this year. So that's about 2 years. So 1 to 3 years is pretty typical. Usually when you're on a master's program, you have to do a thesis or capstone project. I'll talk a little bit more about that. My program requires what is called a capstone project, but many will require a written thesis or a long form paper. So master's thesis So a master's thesis is something that a lot of students will have to complete. It depends on your program. And it's based on your student's specific area of study and is usually based on original research. Usually you have an advisor to help with your thesis or capstone project. Okay, so we'll talk now about the capstone project. So usually the difference between a thesis and a capstone project is a thesis is usually, the term in English would be hands-on. You're doing more like practical work, but regardless of whether you do a thesis or capstone, you're usually going to have to undertake some sort of writing assignment, but the capstone project is not as writing intensive usually as a thesis. I wouldn't say like one is better than the other or more work than the other. It just depends on your program and what's required. So the capstone compared to the thesis, usually there's other outside work that you have to do that you would not have to do in a thesis. Okay. So here we're going to be talking about selecting programs and institutions. This is a very important step of the transition to graduate schooling. Okay, so here I'm going to briefly outline the Education USA's 5 steps to US study. This is something that is on their website, and it goes through a chronological order or general order of things that you need to do to attend a university in the United States. So first, you want to look at the options that you have, how you are going to finance your studies, how to complete your application, necessary things like for visas and arriving to the United States. Okay, so here we're going to be talking about defining your priorities. So you want to look at what your values are and what you would like to study, what your interests are. There are many factors that you can use to help choosing a graduate program. This is something that is talked about in more detail on the Education USA website. There's also other online resources that can help you with this. So when I was looking for a program, for instance, I wanted a program that would help expand my scientific expertise. I wanted a program that would help give me a greater understanding of the world, but also help in finding a lifelong career. So those were kind of things that I was thinking of, but your priorities will depend on what you want as an individual. So it's important to look at that. So researching your options. So once you've looked at what you want in your graduate program, you want to further narrow your choice of programs. You want to look at what type of degree you're interested in. Usually you need to begin researching early, because if you don't, you could run out of time in the application process. The application windows for a lot of programs are very tight. You have to apply well in advance. So you need to make sure that you have a set timeline of, of when you need to apply. So you want to research early. And so options to help you for researching and finding your potential program are also on, in the Education USA Advising Center. There's also other resources that you can use: education fairs, college websites. My undergraduate school, George Mason University, they had a lot of education fairs and career workshops that you could attend that could help you in choosing in job graduate program, things like that. So it's very important to research your options when thinking about graduate school. So information that you're looking for. So you want to look at type of degree, as I talked about. Tuition is a very important thing. Especially, even if you, even, with scholarship and financial aid, it's still very important. You want to look at type of study. We're coming off the coronavirus pandemic. I know that there are still a lot of restrictions and things like that. Location is very important, and time of completion and number of credits. So for my program, I was saying earlier, it's going to take me about 2 years, but it's not going to take, not everyone in my program finishes in 2 years. It depends on how many classes you're willing to take at a time. Other time stressors, like if you have a job while you're in school, you need to factor that into how fast you're going to complete your degree, things like that. So that's a very important factor. My program has 10 courses and a capstone project. So once you complete those 10 courses, you're in the project, you're done with the program. Okay, so this is actually the page to my program at Johns Hopkins University. So when you're looking at a school's page, there's a lot of things you want to look for. So you have the whole name here, and it talks a little bit more about what kind of thing that the program offers. So you have degree type. So Master's of Science is the type of degree. Requirements is 10 courses. They have 3 terms every year, fall, spring, and summer. And time to completion, they say 12 to 24 months. That's someone who is, 12 months would be someone who's full-time. So you're taking 3 or more classes at a time. 24 months would be someone who is taking about 2 classes a semester. If you're taking only 1 class at a time, it might even take longer than 24 months. So that's just some important information. As you can see on the site, there's also other important information on the Johns Hopkins website, like admissions and aids and aid and other student resources. So when you're looking at college websites, make sure to explore the degree and also other information. And then there's also information below this screenshot, but I just wanted to show this part of the page. And it would have been a bigger screenshot if I showed the whole thing. Okay. So now we're going to be talking about application process and documents. So as I'm sure you know, that there's many types of documents that you need. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, are aware of some of these. The TOEFL and the IELTS are very important English language tests that a lot of international students have to take before attending American universities. Some programs require specific tests for admissions. The MCAT is an example for medical school. There's many other types of tests. So this is something that you need to look into. Education USA provides more information about prerequisites and things like that needed for attending school. Okay, so application documents. So these are just some examples. So like the personal data form, it gives like demographic information more about you. The personal statement, I've helped students write, or I've helped edit personal statements, I should say, of students in the Opportunity Program, which is a similar program to the GSAP program. Transcripts are another very important thing. Letters of recommendation. And as I've said earlier, deadlines. Okay, so personal statement. So I'm sure many of you have written a personal statement before, but I wanted to go through it again because it's very, very important. It's one of the most important parts of your, it's one of the most important application documents that you'll have. So you need to outline your credentials and why you are a good fit for the program. And one of the most important things is you want to have others read your personal statement. You want your best self to be represented. on the page, and you want to make sure that you do that. And other people will give you some of the best advice on that process, especially people that know you well. Make sure that you're following directions and other important things to make sure that you're fulfilling the requirements. Okay, so letters of recommendation. So this is an important thing. So you usually need letters of recommendation from certain references. For my graduate program, I needed 3 letters of recommendation. So I chose like a former boss. I had former professors. So you want like people from academic backgrounds are usually very good, or people that know you from the workplace. It depends on what program you're applying to. So some programs may want you to have recommendations from specific people. So that's another important thing. You want to have someone that trusts you and that knows you well, and you want to contact them in advance if possible. So financial aid and monetary considerations. So it's important to remember that graduate school is a financial investment. You have to weigh the costs and benefits of attending graduate school. You want to look at, is graduate school something that will help you in your career? Will it help improve your financial prospects? So these are some things to weigh. I know I've worked with many students. They're extremely good students, extremely smart, and they know what they want. So they know what kind of program they want, and they're very driven. And those kind of students tend to do very well in graduate school. But it is important to examine yourself and what you want to get out of school, because it's a big time commitment and it's a big financial commitment. So here we have types of financial aid. So we have scholarships, student loans. Not all of these will be equally relevant for international students, and I'm not going to talk about all of these in detail, but I'm going to talk about a few of these. So assistantship scholarships. So these are usually presented while you're studying at university, usually for teaching and research. They're more common in the STEM fields, the science, technology, engineering, and math related fields. So this is something that you may look into if you want to do research or teach. For a lot of STEM programs, you can work as like a teaching assistant and other types of things. Like when I was an undergrad at George Mason University, I had teaching assistants who were graduate students who would teach the science labs, like for chemistry or biology. Okay. There's also fellowship scholarships. These cover tuition and living expenses. So if you're living on campus, like most international students will usually live on campus while at university. These are very competitive. So these may be hard to get. So there's on-campus employment. So there are specific rules for graduate students. This is something that you need to look into and make sure that you're following the rules for on-campus employment. Usually there's like an hour limit. This is something that I've mentioned before, but there's a lot of resources available once you get accepted and are on campus that can also help you. So make sure that you ask for assistance or clarification if necessary. At George Mason University, what I would do is they have a career center. So that was important sources. If I had questions about something, I could go to the career center and those questions would be answered. And most schools have something like a career center, or some schools have an international International Student Advising Center even. So those are things that you want to look out for. Okay. There's also government and private scholarships and employer assistance. So some employers will offer financial assistance for employees enrolling in a graduate program that's relevant to their field. If you can, so this is very important. So if you're on the job, this is something that you could ask your employer or that you could research into. Okay, so these are more general tips for entering graduate school. So you want to provide, you want to look at multiple different types of programs. I had talked about before narrowing your list down. So you may have like a top choice and then you may, or a few top choices and then have like, you know, a few other alternative choices. So it's, you never want to apply to only like one or two schools because if something happens or for whatever reason you don't get accepted, you know, you have much fewer options. So make sure that you're looking at different schools and programs. You want to see what the experience of other students in the particular program you're looking at are. You want to see what other people are saying about the program. You can see what kind of jobs that students have gotten after graduating from the program or while they're in the program. Things like that. So that's very important. You want to see, you know, you want to see what life is like for people after graduation. And if you need assistance, again, make sure to ask. Again, Education USA provides help for and resources for students seeking graduate study. So this is the question and answer section. So, you know, you can ask any questions that you have. I think that is it. I know that we'll be recording, so you can watch later if you wish. So I'm gonna mute myself briefly.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Oh, you're welcome.
Now we will wait for questions from our student and I will stop the recording.